professional. But it's funny, I think God has a sense of humor. But I'm glad all of you are here this evening. Let's open in prayer. Father God, we love you, we praise you, we thank you, Lord. I just pray for safety tonight, for the kids out trick-or-treating. I pray, Lord, that they would not be influenced by anything that they don't need to be influenced by. Pray for our time together tonight, that you would lead, guide, and direct. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so we are back to our study in the book of Revelation. And last week we finished up chapter 8. We are already 8 chapters through. So tonight we're going to jump into chapter 9. But before we do that, as we always do, let's do a quick review. By the way, does the review help you guys remember things?
Yes.
Yeah, that's how I learned most of the time, is by repetition. So I figured I would always do that with the classes I taught, so that we would remember things. So I've asked this multiple times now, but who wrote the book of Revelation? John. And which John was it? The Apostle, yeah, the Beloved, that guy, right? And where was he when he wrote it? Patmos, which is in Philadelphia. No, it's not true. No, where is it?
Island of Greece.
Island off the coast of Greece. That's exactly right. And he's from West Philadelphia, born and raised. And he wrote just edit that out. He wrote, I was just seeing if you guys wrote it, the book in what year?
About 95 AD.
About 95 AD, in the 90s definitely. And we talked about the significance of the number 7 at the beginning. We said it's the number of completion, right? So we've seen that repeated throughout our study. And we're going to hear it again tonight. We're going to talk about the number 7 again tonight. And speaking of the number 7, what were 7 things at the beginning that John saw in his vision?
Churches.
The churches. He was told to write to 7 churches, but what did he see?
The lampstands. Oh, the lampstands.
The lampstands, and those were representative of the 7 churches. And we talked about the lampstand. We talked about what it represented. We talked about how Jesus tended the lampstands, right? Then we talked about the shofar, the significance of the shofar or trumpet. And then we talked about what Jesus looked like in all his glory, right? He looked very different than the pictures of Jesus we see today, right? He's not the gaunt hippie from the 60s. You know, he's very different looking in his glorified state, right? And all this while, we found out that John was instructed by Jesus to do what?
Right when he told him.
Huh?
Right when he told him.
That's right. To write down what he told him in the letters to the 7 churches. And I'm just going to name off the churches. I know you guys have heard them before, but Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. Last but not least, right? And we learned different things about these cities from a historical perspective. We also learned the good things they were doing and the things that they weren't doing, right? And in some cases, and at least 2 cases I remember, they weren't doing anything well, right? And we learned a lot about not only how those churches were operating, but how the church has operated throughout the age, right? That was the whole point of them being representative of the churches. And John then is taken up to heaven by Jesus, or at least he, in his mind, is taken up. We don't know for sure whether he was physically there or not. It doesn't really matter. He was shown a vision, and that's the revelation. Who remembers what the word was for what the book was called? Apocalypsis, right? Which is the unveiling or revealing, which is where we get the word apocalypse. And so he's taken up. These are the end times. Jesus is showing him the end times. And he's seen a lot now. Okay? It's going to get crazy tonight. But what are some of the things that he's seen?
The throne.
The throne?
The 4 living beings.
The 4 living beings? Jesus, yep, and then Jesus in two separate forms, right? So, that's right, as the slaughtered lamb. What else? The four horsemen of the apocalypse, right? What else? The elders. How many of them? And what were they doing? Worshiping, but they were sitting somewhere, right? They had their own thrones, right? You guys remember that? We've talked about the symbolism behind the colors and the different jewels that he saw and what they meant. The living beings, there were four of them. What did they look like?
They had eyes all over them.
They had eyes all over them. What else?
Lion.
Wings. One looked like a lion.
One looked like an eagle.
An eagle. A human.
Was it one a white horse?
No. Ox. Ox. And they were all symbolic of something, right? The Gospels. And they were presented in a way. The lion is kingly. The ox is a servant. The eagle was from the perspective of the Holy Spirit. And then, of course, the humanly perspective, which was the gospel that was written to present Jesus as a human being, as man. What was God holding? A scroll. Which hand?
Right hand.
His right hand. What's the significance of that?
Power.
Power and authority, right? What kind of authority did he have?
Legal.
Legal and moral authority. We discussed why. Right? To open the scrolls. That's right. And so, here we are. He's got the scroll. And nobody can open it, right?
Right.
What happens next? John is crying because nobody's there that's worthy to open the scroll. But what happens?
Jesus said, "Why are you crying?"
Jesus said, no. An angel says, why are you crying?
Somebody did.
But then Jesus steps up and says, give me that. Right? That's not a word-by-word translation, just so you know. But he stepped forward, he took the scroll, and they all fell down before him to worship, right? And we heard the voices of millions of angels praising Jesus along with them. And then things started to move quickly. Christ started breaking the seals, and things started happening. Right? We talked about, we're not going to get into it again, but we talked about the four horsemen of the apocalypse, what they were significant of, what they meant. The red, the black, the white, and then of course the green or the pale horse. And we talked about how those things were related, the colors were related to what would be happening on earth. We talked about the judgments and the wrath of God, and how there would be earthquakes and meteors falling from the sky, the chaos, government collapse, how everyone, the powerful and the rich, would be to the point where they were hiding in caves. And if you remember, they were asking to die, right? They wanted the mountains to fall on them and kill them because they were terrified. And then the angels held the judgment of God back for something to happen in the four corners. What happened?
Everybody got marked by God.
The seals, right? They were sealed by God. How many of them were there? 144,000. These were the New Testament Jews. They were the remnant of Israel that became believers. We went through the tribes. We talked about each tribe. Okay, so here we are. We got to chapter 8. So we've gone through 7 chapters quickly, right? All of you are going, should have done that at the beginning. No. But we got there quickly. What happened at the beginning of chapter 8 before anything else?
Breaking the seal.
Nope.
Seven seal. Oh, interest.
So there's 30 minutes silence.
Silence in heaven.
30 minutes.
Yep, 30 minutes of silence. We talked about what that could mean, or it could mean nothing, right? But then, after that, John saw something. What did he see?
7 angels.
7 angels. And what did they have with them?
Trumpets.
Trumpets or shofars, right? And they were doing what?
Burning gold incense.
No, not yet. I know what you're talking about, but they were getting ready to blow
Oh,
the shofars, right? And something happened after each shofar was blown, right? After each time it went off, something occurred. So that sound is equated to something disastrous on the earth, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, first angel blows, what happens?
The incense.
Tell me about the incense. Sweet smell, but what happened? You guys remember? The incense was mixed with God's people's prayer, and it was put on the altar. What was the prayers were kept in was used from the fire that was burned from the altar, was put in that, and it was hurled at the earth. You guys remember that?
Yes.
Right? Yeah, there we go. And after the trumpet blast happened, it brought hail, fire, blood. The second trumpet resulted in a mountain being thrown into the sea, and a third of the water became blood. You guys remember that now?
Yep.
The third trumpet blast was a great star that fell from the sky called wormwood, which means bitter. And a third of the fresh water supply of the earth was polluted. People were dying from it. The fourth blast resulted in a third of the sun, the moon, and the stars burning up. And the universe was darkened. Okay? And then, at the end of the chapter, we hear the eagle cry overhead. And what does he say?
Terror.
Terror, terror, terror. And now each one of those terrors, each one of those woes corresponds to one of the horrible things that's going to happen. And this is where we go from the tribulation to the great tribulation. Okay? You guys, I don't know if you know there's a significance. Okay? We've heard about the tribulation, but we also hear about the great tribulation, and that's the last three. So, the four that have already happened, it sounds like a lot, but it's really nothing compared to what's getting ready to happen. Okay? So we've heard we've heard 4 trumpet blasts, but there were 7 angels. So the process has not been complete. It's only completed after 7 angels do what they're called to do. So we have 3 more to go. Somebody read the beginning of chapter 9, just verse 1.
Then the 5th angel sounded, and I saw a star fallen from heaven to the earth. To him was given the key to the bottomless pit.
Awesome. Look at that, Matt Reed.
No, Matt.
So, we're going to learn some stuff tonight, guys. The 5th angel blows their trumpet. Star had fallen from the sky, and he was given the key to the shaft of the bottomless pit. What is a shaft?
Shaft, like a mining
Shaft.
mining shaft.
What is the shaft?
Like a tube that comes down?
No.
Or a shaft?
Are you talking about a mining shaft?
The shaft itself is a door. Okay? Inside is the pit. He was given the key to the shaft, which opens the door. Okay? Now, again, we're going to learn some stuff. You ready? The 5th angel blew his trumpet. The star fell from heaven. This was not an actual meteor or star. This is a person or being. Okay? Because he, the star, receives the key to the shaft of the bottomless pit. Who is the star?
Beelzebub.
No.
Beelzebub.
Beelzebub, who is who?
The pump.
King,
Satan.
the head of
Satan
demons.
himself. Okay? Isaiah 14:12. Listen to me here, guys. Isaiah refers to Satan's fall from heaven and calls him a star.
Isaiah what?
14:12. This is where we're going to see prophecy coming to fruition. Okay? And some of this stuff, when you tie it together, it's amazing. I never knew that, right? So, at some point before history, the dawn of human history, Satan rebelled against God, right? And he took a third of the angels. We know that, right? Why? What did he do to rebel?
He put himself at God's level.
Above God. But yes, he wanted to be worshipped, right? And he was beautiful, is what they said.
Did they call him the morning star?
No, he was the beautiful star. Jesus is the bright and morning star. But that's confused a lot.
But he wanted to
So good
control.
question. He wanted to have that, okay? But check this out. Some of those fallen angels that came with him were locked up in what's called the release all those demons that have been locked up. Now, they have been locked up since the dawn of humanity. Now here, I'm going to blow your mind. Do you guys remember the story about Jesus going over to, let me find it, it's called Gerasenes. You guys remember that? And he finds a guy that's out of his mind. He was possessed with demons. And they say, but where do they say initially that they don't want to go? The bottomless pit. They don't want to be locked up for thousands of years before that happens with the other ones that are locked up. Did you guys know that?
No, I didn't.
How cool is that? Right? So the keys, I want you to notice though, the keys to the abyss do not belong to Satan. They had to be given to him. He has been given free reign on earth. We know that. Prince of the power of the air. But God still controls the rest of the universe. And so for Satan to get his demons out, he had to get the keys. And only God has the keys. Okay? The verse explicitly says that the key must be given to Satan. God permits him to have the keys and to unleash judgment upon the earth. How crazy is that? Somebody read verse 2. When he opened it. Go ahead.
And there rose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit.
So this is what we see coming out of the pit. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean it's on earth, okay? But it is a place. It is a bottomless pit. And when he opened it, smoke came out, as though from a huge furnace, and sunlight and air turned dark from the smoke. And according to this verse, when Satan opens the shaft, all of this extremely hot stuff comes out of the shaft. It blackens whatever atmosphere we're looking. The pollution that spews is an appropriate environment for what's about to happen. You guys ever see bats come out of a cave?
Yeah.
That's what I thought of. But they're not bats. They're demons. No, they're demons. So the locusts are separate. Here's what's crazy, okay? So again, the first thing I heard, I thought of when I read this was that it sounded like hell. But it's not. This is a place they've been kept. It is a place where demons were held captive until they are judged and punished. The bottomless pit, the abyss, is a confinement for demons. Now, we talked about Jesus and the many demons that he took out of the man in the country of Gerasenes. And I'm just going to read that verse to you. It's in Luke chapter 8. Jesus demanded, "What's your name?" "Legion," he replied, for he was filled with many demons. The demons kept begging Jesus not to send them into the bottomless pit. How bad must that place be? See, demons are allowed to run freely. So, in this case, they would be confined to the abyss. So that's why they didn't want to go. Okay? But how bad is it down there that they don't want to go where their friends are?
It's pretty bad.
Right? So it can't be hell. And as we read later in chapter 20, hell is the lake of fire. Okay? It's explicitly called the lake of fire, which is the final place. I'm not going to say resting place. It's the final place for unbelievers. And in chapter 20, we learn when Jesus establishes his kingdom on earth for 1,000 years, that's where Satan's going to be confined to. Okay? And by the way, this isn't the only place where this is mentioned. The bottomless pit, or the abyss, is also mentioned in Romans chapter 10, verse 17, Revelation 11:7, Revelation 17:8. So these are other places where this is mentioned in Scripture. Let's move on to verse 3. Somebody read verse 3.
Then locusts came from smoke and descended on the earth. And they were given power to sting like scorpions.
Okay, so this is separate. Locusts are released. Okay? Now, I want want you to realize that John doesn't have any context for what he's seeing. All he sees are these bug-like things coming out. Okay? And in the Middle East, that's probably what he thought it was, locusts. You know, because they're coming out and they're in swarms. Right? But what we're going to see that there's only a little bit of resemblance to locusts as we read this. Okay? Some interpretations of this have said that John might be seeing military machines from the future. You know, I've heard people say, well, maybe it was helicopters, you know, coming out. You know what I thought of, guys?
Flying monkeys.
Huh?
Flying monkeys.
No. Drones.
Oh, yeah.
I thought of small drones. How terrifying is that?
Yeah.
And remember, even when this commentary was written, those drones didn't exist. And now they are. As we learn, as we see more in the future of technology, this stuff might make even more sense. But that's what made sense to me. Yeah. Yep. Yep. But it doesn't mean that they're natural creatures, right? But in the Middle East, still to this day, there are swarms of locusts that are so dense that they blot out the sun and they cover the land. Do you guys remember what happened when God sent the plague of the locusts? What happened?
They ate everything up. They destroyed all the crops.
That's exactly right. Exodus 10. The eighth plague the Lord imposed on Egypt was a plague of locusts. The swarm was so thick it covered the entire land of Egypt and it darkened it. And when it had eaten all the vegetation, not one green thing remained. Right? This is very different than that. But that's all he has to relate it to. He's seeing something and he's like, what is this? It's like locusts coming out. So, what I want you to realize, though, is that the locusts John saw were very different from the ordinary kind. They had the power, like the power of scorpions. Has anybody been stung by a scorpion besides me? 3 times, back to the leg, baby.
Ooh.
Yeah. I got sick. All right. My dad told me, go back to bed. We were living in Texas. True story. Anyway, the sting of a scorpion's bad, but what he's trying to describe is that people that are going to get stung by locusts, and normally locusts don't sting people, are going to be hurt very badly. Okay? And when you're stung from a scorpion, it's a nuisance. You may get sick, may last for a few days, but what happens with these guys, although that's the only thing he can equate it to, is very different. Okay? So, they were given power to sting like scorpions. Somebody read verse 4.
They were told not to harm the grass or plants or trees, but only the people who did not have the seal of God on their forehead.
So we know that God has control over these things because they were going out and stinging those who were not marked as part of God's family, right? They did not have the seal, all right? And so notice they learned or were given the ability to understand the difference between grass or plants or trees and human beings. And not only human beings, but those who do not have the seal. And they were instructed to make a distinction between the two. So this is definitely a result of God's judgment. And in ancient days, swarms of locusts could devastate crops and obliterate food supplies. But in this case, they're going to do much worse than that. Okay? Somebody read verse 5.
And they were not given authority to kill them, but to torment them for 5 months. Their torment was like the torment of a scorpion when it strikes Amen.
Good. Okay, so listen to me here. We don't know if they were tormented for 5 months or the sting of the scorpion tormented them for 5 months. I personally believe, based on how I read that, 5 months with the pain, like the pain of a scorpion. I believe that once they were stung, they felt the effects of this stung. They felt the effects of this for 5 months. Now, 5 months of pain. Now, not only pain, but it's debilitating pain. Okay? What you don't know, and what I found out when I was doing this, was we hear pain, we hear the word pain, and that's what we equate. The Greek describes levels of pain. Okay? And the pain it's describing was unrelenting, horrible, torture-like pain. Okay? For 5 months. Now, anybody had, and listen, I know we've all experienced pain, but has anybody experienced significant, like bring you to your knees pain for a long time? Yeah? I had one instance where that happened to me, and all I can tell you is I wanted to die. I'm not exaggerating. I wanted to die. Okay? And folks, that's what these people want. We're going to hear it. Okay? I want you to recognize that just like Satan, they are limited in their power. They're not allowed to kill. So God's still in control. Yes. They have chosen to reject Christ, so they are receiving judgment.
They'd rather die.
And they still turn away. Now here, they can only torment unbelievers, and they are not allowed to kill them. Here's something interesting that I found. The locust-like demons released from the bottomless pit are given a specific target, those not marked with the seal of God. In other words, they can only attack non-believers, which we just learned. Now, in Deuteronomy 8, the Hebrews were being led through the Negev, okay, into the promised land. And I want you to hear what it said in Deuteronomy. It said that they were led through the great and terrifying wilderness, which housed poisonous serpents and scorpions. There's a parallel. Just as the Lord protected his people from scorpions during their journey to the promised land, so he will exempt his sealed believers from the sting of the scorpions in the tribulation when the fifth angel blows his trumpet. So apparently scorpions are still common in the Negev and the mountain region that touches Palestine. And actually the name of that area is called Rcbc, which means scorpion in Hebrew. Kind of interesting. Okay. Somebody read verse 6.
During those days, people will seek death but will not find it. They will long to die, but death will elude them.
So, as I said, their pain is so great that they want to die. I've met other people in this situation, severe back pain, severe neck pain, to where people have trauma, where it's for days on end and they can't sleep and they can't eat because of the pain. They just want to die. And that's what these people are feeling. They will long to die, but death will flee from them. What a miserable existence, right? And something interesting, I told you that this was severe pain, right? And the Greek wording mentioned that it was constant and extreme. It was not the type of pain that somebody can get used to. We have headaches a lot, right? Or we stub our toe, or we take a nail off. And after a while, we get used to the pain. We just get used to it. But this is the kind of pain described here that cannot get used to. Now, what's not clear is the implication that these afflicted non-believers will be unable to die. Now, here's the thing. If pain is severe and they want to die, why can't they commit commit suicide.
It's debilitating.
God won't let them.
God won't let them. Okay? He has control. Now, I'm not going to claim to understand how. Okay? One of the suggestions is that the sting immobilizes victims so that they may be debilitated to the point from communicating. Another one is suggested that it renders them temporarily immune to drugs and chemicals. I don't know. Or, in what I believe is the case, supernatural intervention, keeping them alive, because they were forced to receive this judgment. This isn't optional.
This is part of his final judgment.
It is. It is starting the Great Tribulation. Okay? But regardless, it's unescapable torment. Physical death is the separation of soul and spirit from the body, which leads to eternal suffering for believers. So it's really hell on earth. Okay? Now we're going to learn more about these locusts. Somebody read verse 7.
Locusts looked like horses prepared for battle. They had what looked like gold crowns on their heads, and their faces looked like human faces.
So again, he's describing what he sees. Okay? And again, to me, it sounds weird, but it does. It starts to sound like drones to me, because they can be made to look any way that we want. But what he does is he's equating horses to something used in warfare. And what's interesting is horses have always been used in warfare, right? Even up to this latest conflict in Afghanistan, right? Horses are used in combat. You know why? They go anywhere. Yep. What else? They're fast, they're strong. What else? Yeah, absolutely.
Well, they're instinctual.
They're instinctual. Yeah, they know what's going on around them. Well, they're not indispensable because people want to keep them or dispense them. True. Probably in the early times, makes you look like a bigger force. But guys, did you know that horses, when they're trained, they're not afraid of battle? They're not afraid. It's actually described. Let me go here.
Like the movie 12 Strong, of the horses that were used for the retaliation after 9/11.
Could be. I don't know. I've never seen that. I must not have kept it. I know I put it on here somewhere. Anyway, he uses the term horses to describe them. Oh, here we go. It's way later because he uses it again. But horses are said to be able to use their tails as instruments. Killed in the attack, blah, 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 blah. Sorry. That's not it. Anyway, I can't find it. But horses are used in battle because they don't shirk when cannons are going on. They charge ahead even when battle is happening all around them. They're trained to fight. And so he sees this as a way to describe the locusts, okay? As something not afraid of battle, like going into battle, like a great army, right? I'm going to stop trying to find it since I can't find it. Anyway, these creatures have something on their heads that look like a crown, might be a colored band or a shiny golden hue, hair or bristles, and literally there's an article of clothing. That's how he describes it. We don't know. But it's describing the locusts as
their teeth were like lions' teeth.
That's right. That's exactly right. They had some type of hair. Okay, so that even makes a lot more sense when you think of horse's mane, right? So again, he's just trying to describe what he's seeing, right? But what's interesting is in the prophecy of Joel. Have you guys read? If you've read the Bible, you've read Joel. It's very short.
Yep.
But Joel chapter 1 verse 6 says, "A nation has come up against my land, powerful and beyond number. Its teeth are like lion's teeth, and it has the fangs of a lioness." Very interesting. The reference to the lion's teeth emphasizes the ferocity of the demonic locusts. However, remember, despite how terrifying they look, how formidable they are, they cannot hurt God's people. Okay? Who knows? Maybe they've been programmed that way. Right? But they are only to torment those people who do not have the seal of God on their forehead. Believers have nothing to fear because he who is in us is greater than he who is in the world, right? Okay, somebody somebody read verse 9.
They wore armor made of iron, and their wings were like an army of chariots rushing to battle.
So it's hard to picture this, right? Now, if you go back to if it was a helicopter, there's armor on helicopters that they put on the outside and inside of helicopters. They put Kevlar armor, right? So in that case, that would make sense. But their wings roared like an army of chariots rushing into battle. The idea is they are making a ferocious noise. And guys, people know they're coming. You guys ever heard even a few helicopters coming at you? What does it sound like?
Sounds like a
Right? Or you ever heard of B-52 overhead? Right? It's a beautiful sound. Guys, that's the idea here. They're getting ready to invade. These are demonic locusts. They're getting ready to take out all these people. And it's that sound. Their wings roared like the army of chariots rushing to battle. Okay? So obviously there's a lot of interpretation. We don't know if it's literal, we don't know if it's metaphoric, maybe it's an attempt for John to describe modern technology. We just don't know. But we do know that these things can harm. No matter what, they harm. Right? And again, I think of small drones that can puncture people. Right? And who knows, maybe they infect them with things. You know, those are the kind of things that I think of. You know, biological warfare. You know, and they can't, you know, they're just sitting there catatonic in pain and they can't die. You know, who knows? Maybe they're confined to a bed. We may understand more as technologies develop over the ages, right? But the idea is this is an invasion of locusts, okay? And the breastplates they're wearing depict that they are armored, they are secure, they are defensive as they go into battle. Okay? And again, back to Joel. Listen to this. Joel 2, verse 5. Like the rumbling of chariots, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? Like the roar of fire sweeping across a field of stubble, or like a mighty army moving into battle. He was describing the end times, and it mimics exactly what John wrote down. This could be Israel being invaded. We don't know. Okay. Somebody read verse 10.
They had tails that stung like scorpions, and for 5 months they had the power to torment people.
So again, we hear that information. We've already heard it, but it's said a different way. It said, it doesn't sound like the pain is for 5 months. It sounds like 5 months they were tormenting people. I don't know about you, but in either case, I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end. That's all I can say. So John has described this demonic horde as locusts having tails stinging like scorpions, horses with crowns, human faces, hair, lion's teeth, iron armor, and a roaring noise. These are some ugly looking things. They use the word Apollyon, the destroyer, remember? This term has been used in other movies to depict this, but what people don't recognize is this is a completely different character than Satan. Now, yes, but at a higher level, below Satan, but at a higher level than the other demons. So just like we know that there are archangels, right? So,
Right there.
there we go. So, but just like in the angels, there's a chain of command in the demonic forces as well. And so they have a king. Okay? And his name is Apollyon. Demons, as fallen angels, are presumed to have ranks in the same way loyal angels do. Satan, sometimes referred as Lucifer, once held a position near God's throne. We know that. But he tried to usurp God's throne, and consequently he lost his position. Since his rebellion, he has been called the prince of the power of the air. We already went over this. In Revelation 9:11, we learn about another high-ranking fallen angel. His name is Abaddon in Hebrew, literally meaning destruction. And Apollyon in Greek, meaning one who destroys. Both names, whether Abaddon or Apollyon, are meant to imply that he is the destroyer. Okay? And he is the king of the bottomless pit and the king of the demonic locusts. Now, what I want you to kind of picture to the best of your ability is, remember we talked about the bats coming out, right? Who hasn't seen that? Anybody? It's an amazing thing. But I want you to recognize that as these are coming out, these things have been trapped for thousands of years. They've been waiting for this moment. If you guys think, a football team running onto the field is a big deal, imagine this and the pain and suffering that they're going to bring to the earth as they come out, and they're being led by this destroyer, their king, right? And Satan and Abaddon and all their demons are on a mission for one thing: to destroy humanity. Steal, kill, and destroy, right? And they are being unleashed by God in this first judgment. All right, so that happens. 5 months. Verse 12. We still have trumpet blasts remaining. Somebody read verse 12.
One woe is past, behold, still 2 more woes are coming after these things.
Man, that's got to be terrifying. I mean, one bad thing happened, but man, remember when the first plane hit the World Trade Center and the world stopped? Think about that magnitude of 100 million, right? This is a big deal, folks. Everybody's going to know. So, we focused entirely on the 5th trumpet judgment, which is the first woe and terror. The equal announced there's 3. We got 2 more ahead of us. The tribulation is a 7-year period of severe end-time suffering and distress. But the second half of this era, called the Great Tribulation, which is the last 3, increases the severity of God's judgment on unbelievers as he pours out wrath upon them. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever read Matthew chapter 24 and recognize that they're talking about the end times. But I'm going to read Matthew chapter 24, verses 20 and 21, and I want you to hear what Jesus says about the end times. On Olivet Discourse, Jesus told righteous Jews to flee to the mountains when an idolatrous image stands in the holy place. You guys remember that? The abomination of desolation. Right?
Yeah.
He said, and pray that your flight will not be in winter or on the Sabbath, for there will be a greater anguish than at any time since the world began, and it will never be so great again. He was talking about this time. And we should be extremely grateful that God has saved us from the wrath to come. Those of us who will be here at that time that are believers. Then the sixth angel blew his trumpet. Verse 13. And I heard a voice speaking from the four horns of the gold altar that stands in the presence of God. You guys remember the altar we talked about? And there's a voice speaking from the four horns. I don't know who it's coming from. It just says it comes from there. But I do know that altar is symbolic for something. What is the altar symbolic of? Judgment. Okay? So remember, this is God's wrath, God's judgment. So the altar, the voice speaking, is a voice of judgment. According to this verse, the sixth angel blows his trumpet. The Apostle John hears a voice, and it had four horns projecting as it was described in Exodus. Okay, the sixth trumpet involves the voice speaking, giving orders to angels to unleash a massive army, causing the death of 1/3 of Earth's remaining population. Somebody read verse 15.
Then the four angels who had been prepared for this hour and day and month and year were turned loose to kill 1/3 of all the people on earth.
So, first time I ever read this, I got a little confused. Anybody confused about verse 15? Anybody? What are you confused about?
The ones that already died.
Did? What I was confused about was why angels would be killing people.
Are they evil angels?
They are. Okay? So, guys, here's when I found an issue with the New Living Translation. Okay? You guys, I've told you before, there are ways of translating things. And there are points in the New Living where, although I use it to teach with because it's easiest to understand, I don't believe it's translated correctly. And this is one of those situations. The term angel that comes from the Greek translates as messenger. And you can translate it two ways. You can translate it to an evil messenger or a spiritual, positive angel messenger, right? And I think they improperly translated it. I really do.
Well, it does say they've been waiting for this.
Yep.
They were down there in the darkness.
That's right.
For it, and then they came out. Now it's their time. So they are evil.
Yep. So we know they're evil because they're let loose to kill people on earth. So these are demons. The voice said to the sixth angel who held the trumpet, release the four angels who are bound at the great Euphrates River. Now, what is the significance of that? I can tell you the first time I read it, I had no idea. Why are they at the Euphrates? They like the river? They're fishing? Why are they there?
That's what they put them.
So they have been bound. These demons have been bound there. Now, what's interesting, and again, this is speculation. Number one, the Euphrates is an ancient boundary of Israel. Okay? So you should know that, Assyrian Israel. So they were not unleashed onto Israel, right? But what's interesting is they're bound. You don't bind good angels. You only bind bad angels, right? Demons are fallen angels. And 2 Peter 2:4 says, in the gloomy pits of darkness where they are being held to the day of judgment. Did you guys know that was there? I didn't either. I didn't know that. Okay? So these have been told to us in the New Testament as well, that these angels are there. But again, why the Euphrates? Well, what's interesting is, and again, it's speculation, the Euphrates was, according to what we read in Genesis, Eden was close to Euphrates. Okay? What happened in Eden?
Adam sinned.
The first sin. What else happened after that? Yep. But we were likely in that area still. What happened next? Nope. The first murder. Yeah. The first murder. Okay. word Nimrod, don't be a Nimrod, right? But Nimrod was full of pride, and he wanted power, and he subjugated those who were beneath him, and he treated them like garbage, okay? Then, guess what else was started there? Babylonian idolatry started there. So, when you think about, yes ma'am?
Does it have anything to do with the angels that he put in charge of where the tree of life was so no one could ever go back there?
You know, it could be. There's no way to know. But the way I read that initially in Genesis, those are good angels. Those aren't demons.
Yeah.
So that's the only differentiation, but it could be. You know, we don't really know when they flip-flopped on whose side, right? But and here's the point of it all, though, is God is in control of all of it. So he can do whatever he wants with whoever he wants, right? But what's interesting is the Euphrates River was a place of great evil because of all the things that had happened there. Okay? Now, here's an idea. Evil could happen in that place because there's demonic forces there. Or God put demonic forces there because it's an evil place. I don't know. Okay? I don't really know. But, folks, this is where I'm going to end tonight, but I'm not going to end with that. I want to talk about evil spirits for a moment, since this is where we're at. Okay, we are on Halloween night, All Hallows Eve. And I know that the majority of people that celebrate Halloween have no ill will. My kids out trick-or-treating, they went for candy. Right? It's the only reason I went. I wore that mask that suffocated me. Right? Yeah, so that's what happened. But I want you to recognize that, you know, when you look at evil spirits, see, there's this idea that there are good spirits and bad spirits out there in the earth that are talking to us. And folks, that's not true. That's not true. Scripture talks about it. The spirits are evil, all of them. Okay? And when people are psychics, and when people can have knowledge that other people don't have, and it's real. Okay? And they talk to their mother on the other side. No. They're talking to demons. Okay? Don't be misled by that. You see, because I do believe strongly in that spiritual realm. I've seen it with my own eyes. Anybody else? It's real. Okay? But there are no good witches. There are no good spirits. It's all a lie. Those are all demonic spirits. That's all there is to it. And if they can get you to believe it's your dead mother on the other side to talk to them, you just open a pathway to evil. I've seen it in my own house. Okay? I saw the power of that when my ex split from me. Okay, because my girls, I didn't know about it at the time, were playing in this. Okay? But it's real. And so the reason I tell you that is not to scare you or anything. It's simply to educate you about what's real and what we have to watch out for when it comes to things like Halloween. Okay? Because, look, I don't have any problem with kids getting candy. But the occult is what's being celebrated in a lot of them. You know, when a kid's dressed up as a fireman, I don't care. But when a kid is dressed up as a demon or as a axe murderer, or we're inviting evil into our lives. We're inviting it. We're saying, I want it. And it's real, and it will answer that call. Questions, comments, concerns?
One time a trick-or-treater come up, she was 8 years old, had a big bullet hole in her head, and dressed up like a
So they didn't get saved until after the rapture.
I had a question about that too. The 144,000 are Jewish, so basically Messianic Jews.
Correct.
Believers, after the rapture.
And we believe that based on what's been told to us in Revelation. Yes.
Okay. So, but there are other believers that will survive
Correct.
during that time period, but they're not sealed.
That they
Correct.
all accepted Christ during
Here's the
After
thing, guys.
redemption, yeah.
Here's the thing. Not, I believe some will turn.
Right.
Some will turn. Some are wise enough to see it.
I was going to say, those are the pew sitters, the ones that went to church and they've heard the stories.
Head knowledge, not heart knowledge.
Yeah.
Could be. Could be, most likely. What else? Good question.
So those people, even though they're believers, they can still suffer the
Good
locust
question.
because they're not sealed.
So good question. If they are not sealed yet, then yes, they will suffer. But here's the other thing: is some of the people that are here, even though they are believers, though they may not be stung by the locust, they still have to endure what's going on.
Right.
So they're suffering as well.
But they're not sealed? I don't understand why.
So we're talking. So
Not everybody stays right away.
the 144,000, which are the sealed, those are Messianic Jews.
Right.
Those are Jews that came to Christ after the rapture.
That doesn't account for anybody else that's.
So you and I are Gentiles.
Yeah.
If we weren't in the rapture and we became believers after the rapture, we're not going to be sealed.
So
We're going to be believers.
here's something I want you to remember, guys.
Yeah.
Here's something that I want you to remember. We're speculating, number one, how long it's going to be from now. Okay? Because we're talking about Jews and Gentiles. That may not even exist in 1,000 more years. Okay? Do you understand?
Yeah.
So, I understand what you're trying to do, but you can't link those two things because we don't know what's going to happen before then. Because who knows? Hey, the Jewish nation was dead.
Yeah.
It was gone. And now it's a nation again. We support. What if Americans suddenly go there and we start mixing? Are you with me?
Yeah.
I mean, we know that there's going to be a third temple built still. Okay? So there's a lot that we're speculating because we're saying 144,000 Jews. That could be people that were once Gentiles. You don't know.
Yeah.
And we don't know how our bloodlines are mixed. We have no idea. So somebody in here could have a bloodline of David and not even know it. Probably not, but it's possible. Does that make sense? Yeah. The point is, and I like talking about this because it stimulates your thoughts. But at the end of the day, we're not going to figure it out. Okay, number one. Number two, the important things to remember are that it's in the future. That's why I always tell you guys this is in the future. We're not going to endure it. And this is judgment upon people that have rejected Christ. So all we're doing is learning about what happened to them. No different than when we saw what happened to people during famines and wars in the past. Other questions? Oh, yeah. Oh, where are they at? All right, let's pray. Father God, we love you. We praise you again. We thank you for the time together. And thank you for the questions, for the discussion. We thank you most of all for your word. In Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks, guys. Be safe.
Thank you.